gosh. Is it on? Oh yeah, it's on. Welcome. Everybody here already had their shoes off on a rainy night and they put them back on and drove to celebrate this fantastic poetry tonight. So thank you for doing that. I'm Liz Garten-Scanlon, and I am so glad to welcome you to the beginning of this very literary weekend in Austin, Texas. Tonight is a double header of two honest, heart-centered, human poets celebrating their new, and in Rebecca's case, first books. You're going to hear a lot from both of these books. Before we do that, I'm going to introduce them both and our special guest, and then I'm going to step aside so you can hear them read. So I'm going to start by telling you that there's art in Rebecca's book, and the artist, Sarah Rosa Glickman, is here. So Sarah's art is featured in several galleries in Durham, North Carolina, and she can often be found at farmers markets and festivals all over the city. Originally from Barrington, Rhode Island, she now lives in Durham, but she came all the way to Austin. So we are happy to have Sarah celebrating with us tonight. Rebecca Bentheim is the poet behind the collection Coming Out Party. Which debuted as Amazon's #1 LGBTQ plus poetry collection. And we'll hear from it tonight. Rebecca is a frequent and generous participant in Typewriter Rodeo, sharing spontaneously live events and as heard on Texas Standard. She earned her undergraduate degree at Vanderbilt University and her MFA at the Vermont College of Fine Arts. By day, she's a middle school English teacher and a warm, smart, wonderful human being. Yay. Welcome, Rebecca. And Sean Petrie has several books out for both kids and adults, including the Seattle-centered Listen to the Trees, the thrilling Jet Rider series, and the exceedingly fun Pet Poems workbook. Woo-hoo! He is one of the founders of Typewriter Rodeo and has written and shared, and this is not a typo, tens of thousands of poems with people on the spot. Like Rebecca, Sean received his MFA at the Vermont College of Fine Arts. He's also got a sneaky little side hustle teaching at the UT Austin Law School. And is truly and officially a curious and enthusiastic Renaissance Fellow. Congratulations, Sean and Rebecca. And lucky us, we get to hear them now. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so hi, welcome.
Hi.
Thank you for coming here.
Thank you so much.
We're super excited. All right, so we are gonna, so our books are slightly different things. So mine is Poems of Midlife. Rebecca's is...
Mine is Coming Out Party.
Yeah. So, there, maybe some overlap, I don't know. So we're gonna go back and forth on these. I will start. So we're gonna read poems, and then Liz is gonna do a discussion here. All right, so I'm gonna start with mine, and they're called Poems of Midlife, and some of them are, and some of them are just poems of whatever. But this one in particular it's called Letting the Gray Grow. I saw a picture of Alan Watts from the 1970s. I had no idea who he was, just a face in a poetry newsletter. He couldn't have been much different than my age now. But he had let that beard flourish in a waterfall of white and black, the silvery strands at the temples flowing out like the straps of a hot air balloon unmoored. I have kept my face close-shaved every day since the gray cropped up. I have trimmed the sideburns higher and higher. I have tried not to be too revealing. But fuck it. That's what his face says to me from decades ago. Fuck it and get in that balloon. Let the lines flail free. It's nobody's ride but yours.
I'm going to read the first poem from my book, First Date. I am 9 and she is 13. And my mom is 2 booths over at the local diner with the waiter who loves to call my brother and me twins. But still, this is it, to me at least. My first date with a girl. She arrives 3 minutes late. It feels like 80. She says she loves all 6 of the drawings I made her and laughs when I ordered the hungry man's breakfast. I'd finish it 1,000,000 times if she'd never stop. I am not that different now. I still love a late night diner with a pretty girl. I still get there on time, present her with my poems. Sometimes it still feels like my parents are sitting around the corner. My mom's right there. I'd eat pancakes till my throat closed up to hear my girlfriend laugh just one more time. I think we are the most ourselves when we are 9, and I am always trying to get back to her.
I don't know if I told you this too, like so Rebecca's mom is here. My parents are not here, but they have read the book, and I had to put a little disclaimer or thing in the front, like, hey, mom and dad, I'm okay. Some of these poems, I'm not going to read many of the downer poems tonight, but there are some in here because it's called Cracked and Broken, so that's how that works. But I'm going to read 2 poems now, and there are a few poems in here that are kind of themed a little bit around like bars or drinking or something, so these are both those. But I also had to tell my mom called, and she's like, I read a third of the way through your book. Are you okay? Yeah, and I had to tell her, like, not all of the poems in there are autobiographical poems for mine. But this one, weirdly, is. It's one of the few that's 100% as it happened. And this one is called Millstone. I remember tomorrow so vividly, said the man at the bar. At least that's what I imagined his words meant. I couldn't understand a single one. Just a jumble of drunken Gaelic. Gray hairs tufting from ears. He could have said a piece of cheese there, was a thought I had. At 2 a.m, the constable came by. The 4 of us hid in the dark, while the flashlight in the window searched empty bar stools. Then we resumed. The old ear cheese, Seamus, I learned his name from the bartender, becoming louder and less intelligible with each round of Kilbeggins. Until at last the bartender said, it's time. And they shuffled behind the bar, all 3 of them down a narrow hall. I followed, into a tiny room with a cot, where Seamus settled onto his back, while the other 2 hoisted a wheel-shaped stone and placed it on his chest. So he doesn't get up in the night, the bartender explained, wander around, piss in the corner. From beneath his stone, Seamus gave me a thumbs up and smiled. And I wandered home in the dark, wondering what was keeping me in place.
This is one of the first poems I wrote for this book. I wrote it about moving from Nashville, Tennessee to the Bay Area and actually seeing queer people in person for the first time, in an obvious way. I remember every lesbian couple I ever saw. The first is at Barnes & Noble, where I work and am supposed to be shelving, but really I am delving into the only lesbian book we have. It's Nashville, where the Christian section is 3 times the fiction section, and the gay books are in the back by the bathroom, and that book is trashy and problematic, but every day I pray they still have it, that no one buys it before I get the courage to. But one day I'm leaving out the back entrance on my 10-minute break when I see them. 2 girls, one pulling the other up the down escalator, their hair dyed the same color in a way that makes me think of them dunking each other's heads in the sink. They share the same step, stand so close, but then see me staring and let go. I think maybe I'm in an alternate universe, my body bubbling like too much champagne, heart racing like That could be me one day. And when I finally get to leave, I buy that lesbian book and take it home with me. I don't see another lesbian couple for over a year. Not until after I come out and my sorority sisters say I'm the first gay person they have ever met and ask me questions like, how do lesbians have sex? And I tell them things I learned on the internet. I don't see one until after I moved to the Bay, and the only gay people I see are tech guys at San Francisco Pride on the Facebook float. But then I'm at the Berkeley Bowl, lost, trying to find the cereal when I see them. A girl with short hair smiling while piling fruit up on the belt. Another girl runs out with a box of almond milk, shouts, "Wait, you paid at Trader Joe's." The first girl laughs, says, "No, I swear it was you," and they kiss and everything freezes. And I'm alone in a grocery store trying to hide my tears because I never find the cereal, but I do find out that in 21 years, I have never seen two women kiss. After that, it's like they're everywhere. Maybe my eyes weren't trained before, but there are the middle-aged woman who kissed during the credits of Call Me By Your Name, older women laying in the grass by Jack London Square, flowers in their curly hair, teenagers on a first date at Lake Merritt blushing and scared, two girls with shaved heads trying to share a skateboard in San Francisco, and me trying not to stare, and then there are my own friends who dance and kiss like the world might end and can't see I'm starstruck every time. Because somehow now I'm surrounded by people who wear their love on their sleeves and hold hands even when it's scary and kiss like it's breathing, and I hope they know I see them. I hope they know I'm not staring because they are gross or weird, but because I know it is the most fearless and beautiful thing. So thank you to the purple-haired girls in the back of Barnes & Noble, the woman at the Berkeley Bowl, the nose-ring girls dancing close in that record store who kissed without ever looking over their shoulders. I see you. Someday I'll be one of you, and soon when I go back to a place where people like us are erased, I will know how to be brave, and I will be.
Love that. I think it like kiss like they're breathing. Like I love that line so much. All right, we have read each other's poems a lot. So this is I'm going to read one more that's kind of on the bar pub theme, and this one is a tribute to. I used to be a regular at this place called the Ginger Man downtown. And I know some of the Ginger Man regulars are here as well, so this is for them. Although I don't think this is one of the few poems where I use the real names, but none of you guys are in here, so but they're good. This is called "Lamenting the Loss of a Pub." Ah, the Ginger Man in its glory. The regulars clustered at the bar corner. Sure, there's room for one more. The beam of polished wood holding us all up. Mary, exhausted from a day on her feet. Buck, weary from a life of law. Shiloh, needing support from a breakup. Dave, a creature of habit. It is close to Christmas, and behind the long rows of beer taps are stockings with each of our names. The rest of the bar turns at our laughter burst. We are so loud, and I am not ashamed. Today, I ran into Mary at the vintage store. It had been 10 years at least. All the store customers turned at our greeting. We were so loud. The Ginger Man is now rubble, beneath a parking lot and condos. I feel the pull each time I drive by, and I'm sad. Oh yes, but I am never ashamed. Some of these poems in here are super short. I'm going to read a super short one here, which also seems a little bit appropriate for this evening and driving here. This one's called, "Are the Headlights Getting Brighter?" I squint like a deer, caught, frozen in oncoming age. And these poems, they came from a lot of different things. This one actually came from a workshop that I did, and we were to write a poem as a letter to a friend, that is something we've never told them. So this one's called "To Stephen." You are crying. Do you remember? 10, 15 years ago, on the phone. you telling me about the cancer in your leg. I was pulled over in my car, both of us still so young. I doubt if I'd ever heard you cry before that. I was scared too. What if I never get to see my daughter grow up, you asked. There was no answer. There is none. I sat there, parked, and you sobbed. It was so long ago. You are fine now, all cancer-free, though with that limp. Ella is grown. Sometimes I'm afraid of being alone, not feeling loved. You could have called anyone that night. You called me. Thanks, you said as you hung up, and is what I say back all the time. Okay, yeah. All right, I'll read one more here, and then we're going to do a poem together. Okay, this is called I Want a Holographic Display. The guy up ahead, younger than me, from the look of his bouncy stride, his bouncy hair, all the bounce. The guy headed in my direction. I bet he just started his run. I am near the end of mine. And this downhill part is harder on the knees. At the start, though, I was almost as bouncy. I want it lit up in flashing letters above me as he passes by. I've done 6 miles already. I was up all night for a deadline. Last month I banged my knee. I'm trying to quit my job. My parents divorced when I was 4. Maybe then bouncy guy would understand why I'm so sluggish right now. And yes, okay, maybe he can have a display for me not to judge either.
I asked Sean to come help me with this one. This poem is called What My Queer Therapist Sent to My Professors the Week I Came Out. And so Sean is going to be my therapist, and this is a real email he sent to my professors.
Our office received documentation that Rebecca has experienced a
Crush, reckoning, major life upgrade,
personal crisis. She may miss
who she was before, Morgan, who made it weird, feeling like she fit anywhere,
classes. Her academics may be impacted, and as a result, Rebecca may require
7,000 years of alone time, everyone to just shut up, the pretty girl from the cafe to kiss her already and make this worth it,
some accommodations regarding coursework.
You will hurt all over. You will wonder if you're making it up. It will take months for you to say it without your skin crawling, and years for you to really fall in love. But a crisis isn't just an emergency. It comes from the Greek word for decision, and came to mean the turning point of a disease, the moment of clarity when the doctors knew the patient's fate. Telling people who you are is not vanity. You are choosing to live. Another one right now. This one is about a phenomenon I've noticed with, that's all I have to say. Recipe for an emotional support lesbian. This recipe is only 3 ingredients, so easy I've seen it made a million times, guaranteed to improve any straight girl's life. You will need 1 straight girl whose hand lingers by your neck after a hug, 1 unavailable boyfriend, or almost boyfriend, who asks if she is on her period if she expresses any slightly inconvenient emotion, and 1 lesbian who has been rejected and shamed so many times she'd rather lift moving boxes, have long talks, and longer hugs with a girl who could never date her in the first place. Now, the straight girl is your active ingredient. At 2 a.m., she will beg the lesbian to come over after a fight with her boyfriend and tell her she's the only person in the world who understands. When the boyfriend cancels on their park date, the straight girl will ask the lesbian instead, She will take her on a shopping trip and come out of dressing rooms half naked and ask if she looks good. The lesbian cannot stare too long, but must always say yes and carry the bags. When the straight girl moves into her boyfriend's apartment, she will call again. The lesbian will come over with a toolbox and tissues because she knows any kind of leaving makes the straight girl sad. On nights out, the straight girl will buy the lesbian drinks and call her hot and maybe even kiss her in the bathroom when she's drunk enough. The lesbian will start to hope and try to crush it. But when the couple is on vacation in Europe, she will walk their dogs and house sit and look at their photo on the mantle. For the first time, she'll let herself wonder, why can't it be me? When they come home engaged, she will speak now instead of holding her peace. It will take everything in her to say how she feels. The straight girl will act surprised and say, "Aw, that's sweet, but I only see you as a friend." Note, this recipe has been recalled. If you have ever been an emotional support lesbian, you are entitled to emotional compensation.
Very coordinated with our poem. Okay, I'm gonna read a couple more, maybe 2 more here and 1 more after that. So there are a few poems in here that rhyme in mine. So this is a rhyming one called Jiggly Bits. Whose sags are those? How are they mine? Bags are those, that wrinkly line. I swear just yesterday I was so smooth. Each time at the gym I would improve. But now my bits are jiggly and low. Where did the time and firmness go? I've tried to hide them, my neck's the worst. But bits want to jiggle, they're well rehearsed. Is the answer to alter or cover my face? No. To jiggle is to dance, and I will embrace. This one is called Barnacle, parentheses, to what end? And the beginning of it rhymes, but that's it. There are plenty of odes to wrens and roses, but the barnacle gets noticed only in wrinkly noses. Perhaps a chuckle at the syllables, but no more. Still, take a moment. Kneel by the gray rock. See the cluster of star shells. Pick one, just one. See the patterns and pockets, the pimply bumps. Look closer, longer. There, a swirl of light, a dance of darkness and depth, of clinging to whatever is, of being washed clean over and over, of clustering together with others of your kind. And to what end? Yes, simply there in the sun, salt, and sea, simply alive and not caring one star whether poems are written in your honor. And to what end? Yes, barnacle.
All right, I just have 2 more short ones for you. So before this one's called First Date again. And this one is about my first date with my girlfriend Allie, who's right there. And I'd been really focused on writing prose, and I thought, maybe I'm not really a poet. I hadn't written poems in about 2 years, and then right after I came home from our first date, I wrote this. It's really short. First date. After we kissed next to the dumpster, you said, "Now I want to walk you back to your car." And we laughed because I had just walked you back to yours. I didn't know how to say I would have stayed all night with you, walking in circles.
Aww.
And here is the last one, or one of the last ones in the book, about when we first moved in together. Quiet. You making toast in my kitchen. Our kitchen. When will it sink in that you live here now? You take your coffee out to the balcony, leave your phone here on the counter. So it's just you, that mangled tree, the city skyline, early light. I watch through the window and marvel at how good you are at silence. When you come inside, I'm playing piano. You step around the boxes and go to wash your mug in my kitchen, our kitchen. I get up and hug you from behind, rest my head on your back. I love you, I think, but don't say. I hope this never sinks in. I know that you can feel it. All right, I'm gonna hand it back to Liz, our amazing moderator. Thank you, Liz.
Yay. Oh, everyone, let's give a giant round of applause. I have multiple lumps in my throat after those readings. They were really moving. So before we chat, just a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, I did this in order to make a demonstration, otherwise I wouldn't, but there's special themed cocktails. Tip your bartenders. And thank you to Quackenbush's for hosting this incredible event. Reverie Books is in the back and are here with numerous books, as especially Cracked and Broken and Coming Out Party. So get your books there, and I have word that they will be signed afterwards when you find Sean and Rebecca. And Sarah has an incredible collection of her art up front. The hand drawings of the art featured in the book. Special sort of limited edition of the artwork, and they're just gorgeous, so come have a look. Okay, I thought we would chat a little bit.
That sounds like a plan.
Okay. I want to start by backing up out of these pages a little bit and have you each talk a little bit about the actual writing process of these books, your own particular process, how long it took, whether you had critique partners or readers or editors, and so forth. So who would like to start?
Sure. Okay, Rebecca.
Okay. So some of these poems are from even 8 years back, 7 years back, but most of them I wrote just this past year. And I wanted it to be like my entire, I guess, journey from when I first started realizing I was gay, like even just the inklings all the way until now. So I went through about 30 of my old journals. I've kept a journal since I was 6, and I decided to bring some of my first ones to show you how cool they were, because this is pretty cool, I think. And this cat one is also pretty cool. And no, I'm not opening it up, Sean.
Show what the pages look like.
I'm kidding. It's not just a flip-flop. But yeah, so I went through them, and I really just noticed which poems gave me the most visceral emotional reaction. And I found that were the ones that maybe something that happened that I didn't actually remember, or I didn't even think was important to me. But when I read them, I could see, oh wow, I never processed this at all. And so I was able to process it through the poetry and just learn a lot about myself through the process. Honestly, it was really a cool experience for me to do.
Can I just say really quickly, I love hearing that, and that's one vote for not burning your journals. All the other votes are kind of for, but it served you. You can really feel it. They really feel present, like the emotion feels really present in all of the poems.
And it's a journey too. I think when you read it all the way through, it's awesome. Mine is a different process. These poems, a lot of them I wrote over the last maybe 3 or 4 years or so, and they came from different means. Some were, so I do a lot of stuff, Rebecca and I both, with typewriter rodeo. People come up and give us topics, and we write poems on the spot on other people's topics. And so I started a little bit like, I would like to write some of my own poems, which was kind of daunting. And I would, every once in a while, some phrase or thing would pop into my head. Or, like the one about the I want a holographic display, like I was out for a jog, and some guy passed me. And I'm like, I was going so much faster I was at the start, and I was like, wait, I can make this maybe into a poem? And so I would jot down a phrase, and then I would come back to them later and write the poems. Others were, I was out, and this was especially during the pandemic, I found myself walking around my neighborhood a lot more than I had, and I would just take pictures of things. And so there's pictures of like trees, and so I would write a picture, or write a poem, maybe from the point of view of that. It doesn't, come across maybe that way in here, but that's where a lot of these stemmed from, so things like that. And then eventually I was like, oh, I have enough to maybe have a book here. And then I looked, and I think we were both like talking about the poems that we had, and I think I sent you a picture of this, but I had all the poems I'd written over the last 3 or 4 years that might go into this, and I printed them out and put them on the floor of my house, and there were a lot. And then I went through them, and I color-coded them as blue was a downer poem, green was an upper happy poem, and yellow was somewhere in between. And so I was like, there's a lot of blue. So I had to cull that down and then kind of intersperse them to make it not all down at once.
That's pretty cool. I love that. I also, that resonates with what I was thinking when I was hearing you both read, which is that I don't know how many of you have been to a typewriter rodeo event, but it's a very brave thing to do. They sit at a table. I have sat in on a couple of these events over the years, and you sit at the table with the typewriter, and a stranger comes up and says, I want you to write a poem about my 16-year-old dog named Bandana. And then you just do it right in the moment. And especially if you're Sean, you type much faster than he jogs. He types really fast. But I would say that most people observing that would think it was like the bravest thing they'd ever seen, because it's quite scary and you're on the spot. But what has really struck me reading these books the last couple of weeks and then hearing you tonight is that this is really the brave poetry, because it's so honest and intimate to your own experiences. It's really, really moving. So as a quick sort of aside, Sean, you played an additional role beyond writer here. Sean has created a small press. And so he served as publisher of both Coming Out Party and Cracked and Broken. Yeah? Yeah. And so I'm wondering what you could tell us about that role and process, because I imagine it's rather different.
Yeah, it's a very different hat, and there's a lot to that. In this, having my own publishing company, which just seems weird to even say, was not something I'd planned. It just kind of happened, and I won't go into the story behind it, but it happened out of a kind of a tragedy thing, and I ended up doing a book as a tribute to somebody who had passed away, and with her father, and it was the sort of culmination of like helping him put that together, and then I realized, oh, I have the skills to do this now, and have learned a lot about it. And then one of our other typewriter rodeo poets, Nicole, had come to me with she had a collection of poetry, and so I was like, I kind of know how to do this now. Let's see if it works, and it did. It worked really well, and so then it's just kind of snowballed a little bit, much like when we started Typewriter Rodeo. It was going to be a one-day thing. It was not really anything we planned, and it's just kind of going with it. And so that's what I've done with this, and it's been this amazing journey, and like having both of our books here. And I think we'll talk a little bit too about some of the like how the covers happen and things like that. But so we have an editing team. One of our copy editors is here, Sarah, which is awesome. Woo! We have a design team. One of our designers is here, Andrea, here, which is awesome. Woo! We have a marketing team and all that kind of stuff. So it's this really awesome thing, and it's been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see where it keeps going.
I love that. Congratulations. So yes, that was a perfect segue into the aesthetics, because it turns out we do judge books by their cover. Let's talk about the aesthetics. I would love to know a little bit about the cover designs and what role you both played in the overall look. And yeah, talk about the covers.
All right. Well, first, shout out to Andrea. Thank you so much. Like, you did such a great job on this. And then Sarah made the line drawings on the back. So the cover is orange for no big reason besides that it's my favorite color, clearly. I only wore orange as a child and refused to wear anything else. And the boots have a slightly longer story. So when I first came out just to myself, I did a lot of online research about how to signal to other lesbians that I was one without telling anyone else. And the internet had a unanimous suggestion for me, which was wear Doc Martens. So I went to the store and I got Doc Martens. They didn't specify the color, so I got these like sand-colored ones that were more like Timberland boots than Doc Martens, but they were the brand Doc Marten. And I wore them to a cafe, also probably with my sorority t-shirt and skinny jeans, and I thought, everyone's gonna know. It's so obvious. Like, and I'm gonna have a girlfriend by the end of this. That is not how it went, but I still see that as kind of my first mini attempt at coming out a little bit. And so I'm hoping that these beautiful boots signal to people in bookstores and online that this is a book for anyone, but also for queer women who might need it.
So, well, blue is my favorite color, so that's how this happened too. But, so when Rebecca and I were talking about these books, and I had no idea what to do for the cover of mine, and Rebecca had come up with a mock cover for hers. I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And then we had met during the summer, and you just found, she found an image of a hot air balloon, because that first poem I read, there's the balloon image, and there's like, I love that. And then just did a mock-up of the cover, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is amazing. And so that's where the idea came from mine, and then I ended up finding, Andrea and I ended up finding and working with another image on that. But so my cover idea came from Rebecca's too, and then the other story, which is very fun, I think, with ours. So Rebecca had made a mock-up of this cover, but the image that she found was from the Doc Martens website. It was like graphic art, and I was like, we can't get the license for that from Doc Martens, sorry. And so we were, this summer, we were hanging out, and we were sitting in next to each other at this event, and I looked over, and it wasn't these shoes, but Rebecca was wearing her Doc Martens, and I was like, wait a minute. I was like, hey, we could just take a photo of your feet and recreate what's on there. And so we did that, and then we sent it to Andrea, and she was able to like make it look, really cool on here. And so that's where all that happened. Yes.
Oh. We were talking about it in a cafe, and we stood up, and Sean goes, all right, now time to go take pictures of your feet. So I'm sure all of those people think we're very normal.
I didn't think it was that.
Don't you think, Doc Marten, if you say, I'm a lesbian, they should let you use the images for free, since it's like on the internet? Okay, so speaking of aesthetics, Sarah and Rebecca, can you talk about the interior art for Coming Out Party? And if you don't have a book in your hands yet, you're really in for a treat once you get it.
Yes, so I have to say that getting the opportunity to illustrate this book was easily the biggest honor and greatest project that I've gotten to work on. Rebecca moved into my neighborhood when we were entering 6th grade.
Yes.
And I decided that we were going to be best friends, and we went to Limited 2 and we got matching outfits. And we went to our first day of 6th grade in our matching brown and blue striped shirts. And I was so proud. And our families ended up just becoming one over the years, and it just always was a presence that our two families were together, and we were always in each other's lives. And we went to different schools, we went to different states, and we maintained this connection. And I remember the day Rebecca called me to tell me that she was gay, and she was so nervous. And she told me, and I said, yeah, I know. I'm so glad you know too now. And so when she told me she was going to be writing this book, I was so excited. And then when she asked me if I would illustrate it, I was beside myself. And I'm an artist as my career, so I'm always drawing and always painting, but this was something completely different. And my process for creating these images, I really wanted to make sure that none of them took away from the poem, but they added or emphasized what the poem was about or what it was focusing on or what the emotion was. Because there were certain ones like that would mention something, say a cake, and she was like, oh, you could do a cake drawing, and I was like, no. I need to create something that's going to reflect what you created. And so I read through each poem like probably 10 times, and I would just sit with them, and I could think about those times. Like I knew exactly where she was, who she was with, what she was referring to, and I could really put myself in her shoes and get in touch with her emotions and try to understand not only what she was feeling when she went through what she had written about, but also when she was writing about it, and then try to create a visual partnership. And so I wanted the visual aspect to be a journey in the same way that the words are. And so if you follow through, and you'll see the different styles change with the different energies and attitudes that she's expressing in the different sections. And a lot of them are very abstract, but they're pulling from the concept. So for example, the one you read, the second first date. It's two figures facing one another with kind of this hurricane of lines between them, connecting them. And so it's the concept of two people meeting and just instantly connecting, but it's so soon that you're maintaining that distance, but you're excited about it. And so it's all the swirling aspects of it, and the sorry. And yeah, so then when I got to see it all together, I was like, I have to create the journey outside. So I have a sheet that I created that has each of the illustrations in a row, so you can follow the journey as if you're looking through the content section, but it's in the images.
Wow.
She's amazing. I don't know what I can add to that except to say thank you so much. I mean, it's just been incredible for me to, write about an experience, whether it was a good one or a hard one or a one that I was ashamed of previously, and then see that reflected in gorgeous art. Like, I can't even explain how affirming and incredible that experience was for me. So thank you, Sarah.
Oh, don't you feel like you're being let in on something? It's so moving. That's sort of the perfect stepping stone into what I want to talk about next, which is that both of these books are very personal. And I'm wondering who you think they're really for, both who you were writing to during the writing process, and now who you think the ideal audience is. Do they have to be wearing Doc Martens? Do they have to jiggle? And maybe conversely, who do you least want to read these books?
Ah, interesting question.
That was, what was the first part? Yeah, so, so who these poems are for. I mean, it's called Poems of Midlife, and so I think a lot of them are aimed at when you get to a certain age, and a lot of people go through the same things, or worry about the same things, or worry about not having done these things at this point in your life. And so, to me, a lot of these poems are written, some of them are written in difficult times. I would jot down things at 3 a.m. I'm like, oh, this sucks, and I'd write this down, and but other people go through that too. And so I was like, well, I can write a poem about that. And it's hard. It's hard to put those things out there. And there's some things in here that I was like, okay, this is part of my journal stuff that's going in here. And it really, at the front of it, it says, like, to mom and dad, I'm doing fine, I promise. That's what it says. And it was hard for me to think of them as the audience, but when my mom and dad were talking to me about it, they're like, some of these are pretty heavy, and I was like, you're actually not my audience for this. So I appreciate that, but it's people who, you can be, but that's not who I was writing it to. So I was writing it for people who have been through difficult things or worry about those things, and maybe they can find something that they can relate to in here. And then, what was the other part? Oh, who would I not want to read? Here's the thing too. So some of these poems, there are a few poems written about past relationships I had in here. And I didn't even think about this until the last round of copy edits. I was like, I need to change the names. So there's one in here, it's a triptych, which is 3 poems on the same subject, and it's called An Abundance of Annabelles. That's not, I never went out with anybody named Annabelle, but I was like, there's not going to be any confusion with that. So I think that's, and not that any of them I wouldn't want them to read any of these at all, but some of them are not going to. So yeah, I think, that's the main audience for mine.
First, I want to say you don't have to be wearing Doc Martens. Anyone can read this. My grandma read it. She said she really related to the breakup poems because she's been through a divorce. So I think anyone can relate.
She did say that.
And I think if I had to choose like a type of person for this to be for, obviously queer people, but on top of that, I would say anyone, no matter the age, who's in that period of their life where they're rediscovering parts of themselves. So kind of that really exciting time that's also a really lonely time where you are you're the only one who can understand what you're going through, and you're just excited because you can see a change on the horizon that's really beautiful, but you can't really have anyone with you on that journey. You have to be on it on your own, and so it's for those people.
So when I read a poetry collection, I know that we're meant to be with that collection at home on our own and have our own relationship with the poem, but I also always wish I could do a close reading of every poem with the poet. We can't do that because we would be here till tomorrow, but I did choose a favorite poem from each book, and I wondered if we could just dig into a single poem for a minute just to hear a little bit more detail. And it just so happens that you both read my favorite poem. So Sean, I really loved To Stephen, which is the poem that he read about getting the phone call from the friend. And then Rebecca, I loved so many, but these really struck me. And Rebecca, the poem that you read with Sean, what my career therapist sent to my professors the week I came out, really struck me. So I would love to hear just a little bit more about the writing process of those particular poems and where they came from.
Okay, so I would say that poem sort of came from a place of shame in a way, because when I saw that email that they sent to my professors, I was like, why am I so dramatic? I am not going through a crisis. This is the kind of email you send if you have a death in the family. What? So I was just, and that kind of feeling stuck with me for years of just, why did I have to make such a big deal out of coming out? I literally wrote a book about it. Other people are just like, hey, I have a girlfriend. It's no big deal. I just mention it once and they're like, this doesn't have to do with me at all. This is just one aspect of me. So I don't know. I've had a lot of moments where I've been like, why did I have to make this big post online about it and have this big party and just make this such a big thing? And in doing the research for this book, I did look back at that email and I felt that cringe again, oh, this is so... Because so many of my professors were like, I'm so sorry. But I also looked through a lot of journal entries, and I looked through a lot of old group text messages and just text messages from that time, screenshots, all those. And I found a group me from my like sorority rush like the year before, and there was this big rumor about like our rival sororities, like one of the higher up people, that she was a lesbian because she creeped on all the younger girls, and she was just like, it was just all this bad stuff that kept coming up, and then calling all these people different things. And that kind of gave me a new perspective, along with my journal entries, of I was in a place where it was a big deal. Like I was in, if I hadn't made it a big deal, it would have been other people's words spreading it as a bad rumor, and it would have been like, oh, like don't tell anyone or all this thing. And I love to write. I wanted it to be in my words, and it was hard, and it was not just me trying to get attention, which is the thing I told myself. So that poem was really just about how yes, it was hard, and that's okay, and it's worth it, and I want other people who are struggling with it, even if they do, like me, I'm so lucky to have such a supportive family and so many supportive friends, and like sure, a few people, like I lost a few friends, but even people who feel lucky, like it's okay to struggle with it, and that's the message I want people to get from that poem.
Rebecca, I love what you said about that, and that the poem itself, even if it was a dear and supportive therapist, was your adding your own words. Like the poem is the therapist's words, and then Rebecca going, and all this other stuff. So there's even ownership and agency around this thing that you had shame and embarrassment around, which is so empowering and validating. It's really fine.
The To Stephen poem came from a poetry workshop I took right before the pandemic, I believe. Naomi Shihab Nye led the workshop. She's one of my favorite poets. She's amazing, lives in San Antonio. And she asked us to, I think I'd said, like, you write a letter to somebody, but specifically she said, write the poem in terms of a thank you to somebody for something you've never thanked them for. And Stephen is, he's my best friend, he's my college roommate, we're still best friends. And all that was real, like that happened like 20 years ago, I guess. And I hadn't even really thought about it until that moment, and it just popped into my head. And I was like, why am I thanking him for that? And so then it kind of went through that it's I say I hadn't thought about it, but I had, because it's something that I do come back to sometimes, and it was for the reason that I figured out in the poem. It's like, I was the one he called when he found out with that, and we talked through it, or mostly cried through it, and I didn't really realize like how much it meant to me that he did that, like he honored me with doing that. So then I wrote that poem, and I sent it to him, and he's like, and he texted me back, and he was just like, thanks, blank, you just made me cry. Like here. So so that poem means a lot to me. It's the only one here. There's two poems in here that are two people, and that's one of them.
The you made me cry that's a good sign.
Yeah.
That's the best sign.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to give you all the opportunity to both ask a couple questions if you want, but